All right, welcome to the second episode of the Insight podcast. Today I'm joined by Nathan Ellering, my friend, who is the head of content and SEO at SimpleTexting, a text message marketing platform and SMS service for small businesses. Welcome, Nathan.
Hey, happy to be here, Christian. And as you say, we've known each other for a while, so it's nice to be chatting with a friend here.
Nice. So I give a very short description of simple texting. Do you mind expanding a little bit on what simple texting is and who you serve?
Yeah, yeah. So simple texting has been around since 2010. Excuse me. Simple texting has been around since 2010. Uh, we've grown a lot since then. It's a text messaging software that helps businesses send mass texts. It helps people text one-on-one, do conversations. We see people use it for marketing. We see them use it to text team members, maybe working in the recruiting process, texting candidates, and just a lot of other use cases. But we really target smaller businesses with our content marketing specifically. So that helps us focus the topics that we take on from a blog, guide, hub, you name it, whatever we're creating perspective is that independent business owner or the marketer at a smaller business, maybe with fewer than 50 employees. When we're writing about those recruiting topics, we're thinking about that people ops person who communicates with employees, maybe works in recruiting at that small business. Sometimes it's that front desk person that we're thinking about there. So these people are, they're jacks of all trades, jacks and Jills of all trades. So texting is just, one of the many hats that they wear. So we try to do very simple content that is actionable, like they can read it right then and there and actually do the thing that they searched about. So that drives everything we do is simplicity and actionability.
Good, thanks for the context. And what does your team, the SEO and content team, look like?
Yeah, right now it's three of us. So there's me, and then there's Danny Henyon, who's our content lead, and then we have Lily Norton, who is our content writer. So the team of three, we try to publish a lot of content. Um, like I said, simple texting has been around for a really long time. So for us, it is a lot of looking at maybe keywords that we've already targeted and figuring out if our content is good enough today, competitive enough to continue to rank for those terms. So with that, the team of three, there's only so much that three people can do. So we also rely on a small team of freelancers. We work with 6 freelancers. We try to get pieces assigned to them every single month. So getting a few articles, maybe 6 to 10 articles from them every month just to help us scale. We also have a creative team here. So for certain pieces, we'll pass along to flow through design, which has been a newer thing for us. Beforehand, we are like really focused on just writing. We would use our own screenshots. But coming from CoSchedule beforehand, where we invested really heavily in visual imagery, that was something that I wanted to bring to simple texting too. More diagrams, more flow charts. And so we're just starting to do that with our creative team here. So I would say Tim Walker is another honorary team member who helps us basically take a rough sketch and make it visually appealing.
Maybe we can touch upon the impact of these diagrams or images on rankings. That's interesting. That's something
Yeah.
I've thought about, and it's an investment, right? You don't, oh, is it worth it? Um, Maybe we
Yeah.
can touch upon that.
Yeah. So uh, I'll dive or dip back into my experience at CoSchedule. So I've only been at Simple Texting for about 8 or 9 months now. Um, so I was heading up the marketing team at CoSchedule for maybe 8 or so years before that. And from the very beginning, we believed heavily in graphics. Um, that most people in the world are visual people. Like, that old saying of like, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I don't know. We kind of really leaned on that there. Um, the reason why I think that that's valuable is that, I don't know, that when you publish something that has a diagram in it or a framework, something to help them understand what you just wrote about, but visually, those things, it just goes so much further. And by that, I mean, we have a lot of people who scroll on the internet and don't read. CoSchedule had all of these graphics embedded throughout the piece to try to help people understand what we were trying to communicate, to help them execute something, reach a goal, make an outcome a reality. And those graphics helped. From an SEO perspective, we saw those graphics then being used all over the internet. When someone wrote a blog post about marketing calendars, we would see our graphics being embedded in those pieces really often. It got down to like sites like Forbes were using our graphics. So they're finding our content likely through search engines. And then the visuals actually became the most valuable part, which then when those are embedded, you cite the source. So they cite that original blog post, which helped us continue to get those rankings. So I think it's a really good organic backlink play where you don't have to email people, beg for like links to your stuff. That's never been something I like doing. I'd rather just publish content that's good enough to be found, provide original value or original insights, and get those backlinks that way. So I don't know, there's kind of a ramble on that, but I think there's a lot of value around it. Maybe one other thought. Um, Andy Crestodina, I follow him on LinkedIn. He's been a big CoSchedule supporter for years. Um, but recently he posted about just diagrams and Google. And this was just an interesting anecdotal finding from him that when he published diagrams, he was starting to see those things rank in image searches more. So imagine you have a blog post that has a stock photography photo from like pexel.com versus your competitor targeting the same keyword has a custom designed diagram. What do you think that Google will think provides more value to the searcher? I mean, as a searcher myself, like I'd rather see the diagram, right? So it makes sense from that perspective too. There's again that those are anecdotal findings. It's just things that he has seen, but I've seen it myself. I've seen CoSchedule diagrams start to rank, get pulled in organically. So it's another way for people to find you too.
It's very interesting. I was always wondering how CoSchedule's DR was so high, and what you just said, oh, that may be part of it. I don't know how big, but it's very interesting.
It was a
Did you
big
see?
part of it. Yeah, I mean, there's like CoSchedule's DR was high because of free tools too. So headline analyzer, email subject line tester, and then some other things that we did to gain backlinks were like publishing original research. That always helped too. That's something that we're doing at Simple Texting too. Like we have a
Yeah,
state of text marketing report.
yeah.
And to be honest, like if you want backlinks, provide original statistics. The next time someone writes a blog post about text marketing, they're going to want some stats in their intro to say why it's important or why you might want to consider it in your strategy, and they're going to reference us because we publish those original data points. So I don't know, I advocate for that. It doesn't really cost that much. You can work with there are tons of companies that'll do that research for you. But yeah, I would say those three things, which is free tools if you can do it, and original research. Those things were the best that we had ever done.
Yeah, I build a lot of links for QuickMail as well through link building, but also we had original research on cold email statistics, and that used to get, that got and is still getting a lot of natural backlinks or earned backlinks. And I'd agree. So after building maybe 500 links or something through link exchanges and guest posting, I think earned backlinks are superior and the long-term play. That's not to say I don't think link building is not needed at all, because for some queries you just won't get earned backlinks. For some articles you actually need to build some links. But okay, that's interesting.
You know,
Go ahead.
not to turn the tables on this conversation, but you had mentioned link exchanges and guesting. Like, I'm legitimately curious. Like, what did you find? How did you go about doing that? Like, I think you have a process, right?
Yes, it was an entire engine. I might do a video on it. I was planning to on LinkedIn at some point, but basically we were guest posting on SaaS websites basically and agencies. We started doing it to the nearest companies in our ecosystem. So those were SaaS tools that were complementary to our product or that were speaking about the topics we were speaking of, and that because those links are more valuable. If you're a text messaging platform and you have a link on a cooking website, that link is worth nothing, if perhaps even harmful. So this was important to build links with topical relevance, and basically guest posting and just stuffing maybe quality guest posts, filling them with links, maybe 5 links per post. And then we were also offering companies to feature them in our newsletter in exchange for a link, and that proved to be very good for reaching those companies that don't engage in link building, so that you don't find on link building groups because they don't practice that. But if you offer them something else, if you offer them direct promotion on your newsletter, the same audience they target, then it suddenly we had a lot. It's very valuable for them, so we had a lot of success with that.
Smart.
But sorry.
No, I just said that's really smart.
Yeah, but enough about me. This podcast is about you, Nathan.
Uh, I turned the tables on you.
Yes, right. I did have one final question on this link building topic. We kind of discussed on this. We straight up veered from our agenda right from the start, but actually not link building. The diagrams, the images.
Yeah.
Did you test for how high an article would rank with or without original images?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So at CoSchedule, every single piece we did flowed through design. Everything. Everything had something original, something unique, era, something that other people could not replicate. At SimpleTexting, the creative is such a new thing that we've actually focused it mostly on pieces that have nothing to do with SEO, which sounds kind of weird, but it's a new thing that we're trying, is just what we're calling cornerstone pieces of what are some problems that we're hearing people ask us or telling us about. So we're listening to customer calls. We started a podcast where we talk to customers and we just try to understand their current situation and how we can help them out. And so we are focusing design on those pieces. So like some of those are, think about Simple Texting as a text marketing platform. So small business has questions about, how do I get people to subscribe to my text messages? So we're publishing a piece on that. Now there are some keywords there for that, right? But you're not thinking about building your texting list unless you're already deep in the funnel or already maybe a customer. So that's why I say there's somewhat of an SEO play, but we're focusing it mostly on um, helping people use the software better, to be honest, helping people be more successful. So that's just one example, like how to build your SMS list. What should I send? Like, it's really common to get text messages with like 20% off, but there's so much more you can do. Like Snapple, for example, sends daily texts that are just facts, fact of the day. And it's such a great way for the brand to interact with people, because if you've ever had a Snapple, like under the cover, they have the facts, random facts of the day there, or facts of the bottle. I don't know what they actually call that, but it's so on brand. And I can't tell you the last time I talked about Snapple, except I signed up for these texts. And then I tell friends random facts now. Like it's just a brilliant way to use texting from a business perspective, and it has nothing to do with 20% off, right? So like that was a question that people have. What if I think I want to do texting, but like if I do events and they're 6 months apart, like should I do anything? Should I send anything in between? Well, here's a piece about what to send. Here, another question is how often to send. So we've had design focused on those sorts of pieces, which again have some keyword volume, but are so deep. I think if we were to look at the data, my instinct is that custom diagrams help organic search. Do I have any data from Simple Texting yet? No. Did I have data from CoSchedule? Arguably no, because every piece had custom diagrams. But I can tell you the results from CoSchedule were really good, really, really good. So that's what we're trying to build here. So yeah, I'll have to report back. You can have me on a future episode, and hopefully I can answer
sure.
that question.
For sure. Just shoot. I can. Yes, I'm sure. It's a question. SEOs have.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've wondered that. I'm sure others have as well. So
yeah. Maybe here's a thought. There is like with SEO and content marketing, it's the people that will do what the competition won't that are successful. So like, I don't know, there's this thing in SEO where it's like, oh no, my competition just refreshed their page and they added an H2 about whatever. I'm going to look at my piece and add the same nearly identical H2. Like that stuff just needs to stop. Like, how can you actually provide more value? Like, excuse me, how can I actually provide more value should be the question. Like something unique to the conversation. And like CoSchedule's headline analyzer is a good example of this. Like I could have just published another blog post about how to write headlines, but what is better than that? Like, how do you actually help someone write headlines? Well, use a little tool that's just kind of fun to use, and it'll help you write a better headline. It took off right away. It did better than a blog post ever could. Did it take more effort? Yeah. And the competition only years later tried to replicate it. And by then it was too late. We had already gotten the backlinks. So I don't know. Like I think SEO is purely that. How can you give the world something better than what exists today? That's it. You can do that, you will win. Because that's actually not focused on like gaming a tool that people use to find content, and actually focused on the person behind that tool.
I agree, and it'll become even more apparent now when AI content is still We still haven't seen the full effects of it yet. SGE is on the horizon as well, so it'll be a wild west. We'll see who are the real, I guess, cowboys.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You think, SGE is going to be so. I'm excited for it from an SEO perspective. Like, I think it's going to be better for the search engine user. I could see them. They're already doing this, but like when people search for definitions. So here's a little. I don't know how to word this. You read a blog post and every single one of them, their H2 begins with what is topic, what is keyword. That stuff's going to go away. Like SGE is just going to do that for them. You're not going to get a click if that's basically all you're doing. Or if your H1 is what is SMS marketing. Like I wouldn't have searched for the damn thing if I didn't already like have a pretty good understanding, right? For certain things. But when it's like a couple word answer to that, like SMS marketing is using text messaging services to connect with an audience, basically, right?
Mm.
Google's just going to show that in its results, and you're not going to get the click. You're not going to get anyone engaging with your brand. They can just do it, provide a better experience for the user. So I think it's good for the world. Like we're going to be forced, SEOs will be forced to publish better content, original thoughts. That's what it was always supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we should edit that out. That was a rant.
No, that's fine. We jumped to the end. These were the.
Oh, my bad.
No, this is going. Where these topics are very interesting, and I'm sure on the mind of everyone. Let's take it back to simple texting, and maybe since we already jumped right into tactics and discussions, we can continue on that thread and touch upon some of the initiatives or projects you had so far that were either successful or were a good learning, or kind of the main your main efforts so far that you want to speak about. You mentioned, well, you know what they are.
Yeah. So I still feel like I'm new at simple texting. I feel like I'm new to this role, new to the team. That every day I'm learning something new. Right down to different terms. I'm hearing new names of people. So I feel like a new person. And another thing that I walked into that is that they have a very mature blog, or had a very mature blog before I started, and other sorts of content marketing, right? These things already existed. They had the blog, they had solution pages, they had feature pages, industry pages, guides, and all of these things, like they ranked for at least some terms. So I got brought in because keyword rankings were declining, traffic was declining, and that was being reflected in the lagging indicators of trials and upgrades, what we call paid new business from new customers. So they brought me in to try to, if we focus on the leading indicators of rankings, all rising tides raise all ships. So it's an interesting thing to walk into, right? So you have a page targeting keyword already. Now what? So the first thing that I did was it became apparent that there was just more competition in the market. And that caused a lot of volatility in the SERP rankings. And that volatility caused volatility for us with customer volumes. So the first thing I kind of tried to do was to establish some standards of performance. So I kind of mentioned this, but you will succeed with SEO if you go above and beyond and do what others won't. That's where you'll succeed. You'll succeed where they don't. So standards of performance were there to help us basically define what good content is. Like, what is good content? Good content for us, at least right now, is competitive content for keywords, for SEO. So, well researched for its topic, its keywords, competition for the audience. It's evidence based, so it's got real life references and facts. Well optimized for SEO best practices, on page stuff, like control what you can control. Well written for our time poor audience. So our audience doesn't need like a 2,000 word guide. That's something I would have done at CoSchedule. They want quick hitting answers to questions and help on how to do something themselves. Again, Jacks and Jills of all trades. And then the last point is, it's well formatted to ensure the best visual presentation that we can. And that gets into why we're bringing visual design in, is we really want these to shine in a way that goes above and beyond what the competition does. So those standards of performance were what I kind of concentrated on first. That's been really good. So first thing was like focusing on quality, but something that leadership had mentioned to me is, well, we are publishing less content than we used to when we ranked higher. So it's an interesting thing for leadership to say. So they actually were counting the amount of pieces that they're publishing in a given month, very data-driven organization. And they saw that declining with just 2 people focused on it. So the question became, I don't know, Nathan, is it that we're publishing less content? Or, what gives? We're just doing refreshes. Well, again, back to that, like they had a mature blog. So the team here was just trying to, we dropped in keywords, so let's update this thing. So my plan became publish more competitive content. And that more was volume as well as just increasing the quality. So scaling the amount we publish, like velocity targets, that became huge for us in my first 6 months here.
New content as well as reworked content?
Yes, new content and reworked. So we actually defined everything that they touched that already existed. They just had one definition, refresh, which I can mean a lot of different things. So what is a refresh? And sometimes, again, we had content that targeted a keyword, but it was just not good enough. So we would want to retain the URL, but we'd write a whole new piece. But you can't call it new because it already existed, right? So we defined different definitions for what refreshing meant. On-page optimization, about 10% of the page was updated. This could be internal linking, a couple new sentences. If we found some new facts, adding those in, but 10% on-page optimization. Refresh is about 25%. So all those things, but maybe you add another H2, maybe. Maybe you add in an FAQ section, something like that. We had maintain, which is about 50% of the piece is newly rewritten, or we've added that much new content into the page. And then full reoptimize is 80% or more, basically either delete it all and publish a new thing, or add essentially a whole nother piece into whatever we could salvage. By defining that, I could define levels of effort for our team too, which helps with scale, right? So this is a refresh based on word count. 25% is X number of words. This should only take you a few hours to do. So that set expectations for the team of how much effort to put into a piece, just enough effort to get those rankings higher. So we were able to increase rankings for hundreds and hundreds of pages, hundreds of terms, instead of just doubling down on a few. So that's how I think you can have quality and quantity, and there doesn't need to be a separation. And, that velocity too, that was another reason why I was like, we should just work with freelancers. Some of these things that we want are pretty straightforward that we want to rank for. So we could have someone who doesn't know a lot about texting write these things. And that helped with scale too. But yeah, those are the things I worked on right away.
Was that successful? Did you manage to
Yep.
climb back up in the traffic and rankings?
Yeah, we've never had number 1 to 3 rankings higher in company history than they are right now. The sheer amount of things that we rank for is greater. We have more 1 to 10 rankings than we've ever had. Like, telling you, it works. There's this concept that I learned from a YouTuber, Ali Abdal, is a parable of the pottery class. I don't know. Have you heard about this, Christian?
I heard
Okay.
it because you posted and
Oh,
LinkedIn and I read it.
yeah. So like well, in case people are listening to this, the parable is like there was this pottery teacher who split his class half and half. Like half the class worked on one pot, single pot for 30 days. The other half of the class was asked to create a new pot every single day for 30 days. And at the end, he was going to select the best pots, what is the highest quality pots. All of the pots that he selected as the best were from the group that did a new pot every single day. So practice makes perfect. Analysis paralysis prevents you from learning. There was some of that going on where it's like, let's just get things out the door, see what sticks, and double down on those patterns. So hopefully that is helpful and answers that question.
To give people a scale of a sense of scale of the effort, do you know how many new pieces you published and reworked
Yes.
this time?
So I do track what we publish for every one of those definitions that I laid out before. That way I can have a nice pie graph when leadership asks, like, well, what are we doing? How much new are we publishing? Well, this month it's whatever percent, 38%, right? Like I can actually give them numbers. So I track all of this stuff. Content is data. In a given month, in an average month, I think I just did this math. We publish around 48 pieces
New.
total. Actually, here, if we got a second, I'll actually give you the numbers.
No worries, I can, if it takes too long, I can cut it. So
Yeah. So let me see. Oh, yeah, I actually have the pie graph right here. 31% of the pieces we published last month were new.
31, okay.
So let's see. Last quarter, or like over the last 3 months, we published 44 new pieces. We published 60 on-page optimization. So that's like 10% of the piece. You can see how we can do so many of those on-page optimizations, right? Because it's a different definition of refresh. But yeah.
So most of your publications are updates of different scales.
Most of them are, right? Like most of our keywords that we target have something to do with texting plus business, which means with our very mature blog, we have a lot of those URLs, content that is targeting those terms. It's just that they've tapered off and dropped off over time, right? So we have a lot of things that we refresh.
How many pages exactly, content pages do you have exactly? Does Simple Texting have?
Ooh, hundreds.
100.
I think the blog is more than 500 pages itself. And then we have hubs and guides and in industry pages. We have solution pages that we update, product pages.
500. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, what else shall we speak about?
Yeah. Let's see. Another maybe one thing that could be interesting for people, especially if you're newer in content marketing, walk into an org that has a blog, is patterns. So when I was new, I, you know, obviously some things are working. Not everything can be kind of tapering down. And so what I did was I looked at patterns, what content gets the most paid conversions, what what keywords are our audience using to find that content, and then you look at what trends does that content share. So for us, we noticed that there were some like key topics for content that convert really well for us, like text to vote. So we knew we could probably double down on a trend like that, and research other terms that people might use to discover us, like text to apply, text to join, text to subscribe, text to win. So we found patterns like that. Overall, there were like 6 different key patterns. So that was just one that I rattled off there. And that drove initially what we originally updated, because the thought process there was like, if we can start to rank higher for terms that are similar, that suggest people are going to buy a product, and we can rank higher for a multitude of these terms, all of a sudden results as a whole can go up. And that's exactly what we saw.
Hmm. What of I found your reactive versus proactive, or reactive and proactive content update framework very useful. Can you explain that a little?
Yeah. So I think for a lot of brands, this is probably the case. The 80-20 rule. It's say what you want about it, overdone, but roughly 80% of the purchases that we get come from 20% of our content and keywords. So we have 15 different keyword maps that we have for 15 important pages. So basically in SEMrush, we tag these keywords and monitor them every single month. So proactively, um, I kind of messed that up. We monitor these keywords, right? That way we can react. So if these keywords drop, we have a way to truly understand if they have dropped, and we have a process in place every single. I don't check it weekly, maybe every other week, but so twice a month we have a process to make sure if something drops, we can react, and we can react with speed rather than having it sit for 3 months and then being like, oh my gosh, what happened here? So that's the reactive side for those pages. The
Do you have
proactive,
alerts, or do you have alerts maybe, or do you just
uh,
check it? I guess you just check it.
it's just me personally. I just
Yeah.
check it. It's just a thing I do.
You could
Uh,
theoretically set up alerts if you're maybe a larger team, or okay,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah, yeah. I live in SEMrush. Um, so I'm in there all the time. But yes, you could set up alerts just to, then you wouldn't even miss a week, right? Like there's a chance
Yeah.
that I would miss a week. Um, but for us, this has been working. So that, like, for the reactive side. The proactive side is that, well, these 15 pages are extremely important to us. So I don't want Google, and I don't want Google searchers to ever see that these are outdated. These resources should never be outdated. So that's the proactive side, where we define how often we are going to update these to do we need a full reoptimize? Do we need maintain, refresh, or on-page optimization? But they'll never be more than 3 months old. So these 15 pages will update once every quarter. And when you break that down, that's 5 pages a month. It's not hard to do. Um, I would 100% suggest that anyone who who wants to basically come into an organization and say, like, the reason why I got hired is to hit a customer count goal from organic, right? Well, if I can get more and maintain the 80% of pages that are doing this, get these other, like, all these other patterns going to try to bring in more people, and I can hit that number, then I can do other cool stuff. Start to think about like video, or I can start to think about editorial journalism. These are things that we're actually talking about, like a podcast, other types of content. So like this was all for me to get my house in order so that we could figure out what the next growth program would be from content. But yeah, proactive and reactive. That's how we did it, along with those patterns. And so far, so good. Really, really good results that we're seeing from this stuff.
Just to confirm your period of 3 months of updating articles, I was also seeing at QuickMail our listicles, like top cold email software, they were starting to drop after 4 months of not being updated consistently.
Okay.
So that it seems to be consistent with what you're saying. So whoever's listening can, 3 months is kind of, you can be safe. You can be sure that that's a good interval.
Yeah, I would say that's what I've seen too. Very anecdotal, but for really important stuff, touching it once every 3 months gets you before it drops, right? That's why it's the proactive side.
That's a very good approach. I like this. This is systematizing some of these things that you need in content. You have a system for it. Some of it is reactive, some of it is proactive. It's very good. Right. What about hubs? This is maybe still a not so popular topic in B2B SaaS SEO. I have seen just very few companies do it. And I think it can be valuable. Like your experience is sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For me, it worked. So I think others should know about it. And it also goes into this direction of, you're doing what others aren't. You're being
Yes.
courageous in some of the things you do.
Take a risk.
Yeah. So what are these hubs?
Yeah. So back in 2018, this is a long time ago, when I was at CoSchedule, I wanted to rank for the keyword marketing strategy.
Marketing strategy.
Yeah, you can imagine how difficult that is, right?
Yeah.
And CoSchedule at that time, like, I could have written a blog post and it would have, one of our values was like comprehensiveness. That would have taken like 20,000 words on a single page to be comprehensive about marketing strategy. So instead, like, I had this idea where we could have like a marketing strategy homepage and sub pages. So yeah, I mean, you can see it today, coschedule.com/marketing strategy. We call that the hub homepage, and then it has many sub pages underneath it. So it started as just like chapters, like, here's the first thing you should do with your strategy. Here's the next thing.
Like beginner, intermediate, advanced into the topic, as it were.
Yeah. Yes. So like the way that I had it kind of broken down was like marketing strategy. Like there might have been a page about executive summary, like know your audience, how to measure, how to set goals, stuff like that. And so it was like very linear, and no one uses the internet like chapters. So like I kind of rethought it and think about it like knowledge bases. What are all the things you might want to know about a single topic, and how do you house them all together in a way that makes logical sense um, to both the user and Google? So it helps with topical authority before I even knew what that was. Um, but yeah, those hubs are really good for evergreen content. I'd say that's a big caveat is the topic needs to be pretty broad. Like marketing strategy was a good example. I think you'll have to correct me. Who has Atlassian has Agile, and
Yeah.
Agile
Yeah.
QuickMail has cold email. Like these topics are huge and broad, but you can have hundreds of pages underneath them. And if you do, it shows Google like, wow, they have all these URLs with cold email in them. They have all these URLs with marketing strategy in them. And I think that's where the benefit is for from a Google perspective is like they must know what they're talking about or they wouldn't do it this way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is that. And then the internal links go, you have a lot of internal links that go to that hub homepage. So it really
Yeah,
worked.
every link you build to that hub, external or internal, affects all the pages. It's just like you were building a link to your homepage, affects the entire domain. It's similar here.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And so co-schedule that worked well. So then we did a whole bunch of hubs, one around content marketing, again, very broad topic. We did one around marketing and
Yeah.
basically published a textbook for if you were a beginner in marketing or an accidental marketer, which was an audience type for us there. You could learn about marketing. And there were some others. I'm forgetting what they all are right now. Tried to do that at SimpleTexting though, and the results haven't been as good as I would have hoped yet. But we maybe don't have enough pages. There are some things that I'm rethinking with them. Um, we're going to be publishing more what we think people need to know when they search for a keyword rather than trying to cover some of the same topics that other pages cover. For example, now if you search for SMS marketing, if you do find us, that's one that we're trying to rank for. Our hub homepage content is dramatically different than the ones that are ranking. The top 10 results basically are all the same exact article. Whereas we publish, if I were new to SMS marketing, what would I want to know? How should I actually do this? So ours is drastically different, and it's an experiment to see what Google will do.
Yeah, right. This is supposedly, what the gold standard, what everyone, the type of content that is customer focused,
Right.
and Google says they will rank it, and it would be great if they did, but do they actually? Um,
I'm going to find out. That's my
yeah,
hope.
right. Yeah, this is definitely the future, customer centric, or if you're doing, let's say, more broader content, should be expert based or expert written. We'll see how Google adapts to that. They should reward that to kind of encourage that movement. But if you are doing it without much reward now and betting on it, you may have some huge wins when that happens.
Yes. Yes. Like you mentioned something that's fascinating to me is industry or expert written content. I think there's way too much of a writer writing something and just making stuff up. And, you know, I think we need to get more to that. This is something that I know you actually did with one of your hubs that is
Yeah.
fascinating still to me to this day. I think such a good idea. And I think there's actual value in that.
That's what I'll be doing at the next company I work for. But going back to the hubs, okay, so it worked for you at CoSchedule, not so much at Simple Texting. For me, also, it worked at QuickMail. I'm thinking of doing shorter videos for these for these things, including the link building, the hubs, and the expert written content.
Yeah,
Basically, sharing what just my experience. And I'll include some more data there from QuickMail and how exactly to build a hub if anyone is interested, and so on. We are running out of time here.
really smart.
What's that? Sorry, I didn't get
I
that.
like it. That's really
Yeah,
smart.
yeah. All right, so I think that's good enough. That's more than good enough. We covered a lot of things that I think will be useful to others. It's what we're doing, and yeah, hopefully it's helpful to people. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming on the show, Nathan.
Yeah. Thanks, Christian. Appreciate it.